return? How are they going to exit? And we have a lot of issues right now with the US dollar funds that have been investing into China and their ability to exit. I mean, what's going on here? What's the path forward?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's aware that obviously the funding environment and overall macro conditions have not been great over the last 2 years. On the exit side, I mean, there have been some IPOs, I would say, over the last 18, 24 months. A lot of them have not done that well post-listing. And, I think most of it, I think, can be attributed to the geopolitical situation. Like Chinese companies, if you go to the US to list, it is difficult to attract interest from US investors these days. Hong Kong Stock Exchange, there's been a number of listings as well. But also liquidity is low, multiples are fairly low. Some of the larger companies in the tens of billions, they try to list, but it is difficult. I think in these times, for companies that don't need the cash, that don't need to list immediately, many of them are taking a wait and see approach, waiting for the environment to get a little bit better, and hopefully their cash can last that long. I think we have a number of portfolio companies that were originally poised to list last year or even this year, and many of them have tabled it for the future. And I think that's just natural. It's a natural part of the cycle, and we can just hope that in another 2 to 3 years things will get better again.
But what do you do as a fund? Just wait along with everyone else, or how do you identify new opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Gobi, I mean, we're generally early stage investors, and so the life cycle of our funds is quite long, right? So generally our funds are 5+5 in terms of fund life. That gives us the flexibility to wait out these cycles, right? And the fact that we're investing early also means that we're able to invest at a low enough valuation where there's plenty of buffer between the entry point when we invest and also the potential exit down the line. So I think in times of uncertainty like this, we're actually probably in a better position than most other investors.
And how are you identifying those early stage opportunities?
Our funds are quite sector agnostic. The latest fund that we just announced, the AFGBA fund, that is more focused regionally. So that fund invests specifically in the Greater Bay Area, which includes, obviously Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Macau, and the rest of the Greater Bay Area. We invest in not just biotech and healthcare. We also invest in AI, other deep tech sectors like robotics, semicon. We also invest in consumer, logistics, fintech. So it's quite broad. We have people on the ground everywhere, right? So Hong Kong is our main base of operations. We also have an office in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. We're looking to do more things here in Nansha. There's exciting things going on across the region. So, as long as we have people and boots on the ground, I think, we're very integrated into the local ecosystems. And, that's generally how we source our investments.
Over the summer, maybe you can share 1 or 2 exciting projects or trends in biotech that you've seen.
Yeah, this is a biotech segment. So, we did announce one investment in a company called ImmunoCure. That's a company that's based in Hong Kong, spin out of Hong Kong University, HKU. It's actually a very exciting company because, one of the key advisors is a guy called Dr. David Ho, who is best known for his HIV cocktail that he invented and is now used around the world. It's basically his students that have come out as a founding team of this company, and they're working on a DNA vaccine platform. Right, and as part of this, they also have 2 DNA vaccine candidates, one to treat HIV and one for COVID. And both of those are in clinical trials in China already. Actually, the HIV one is quite exciting because they've through animal trials they've actually already come up with, which is basically a functional cure for rhesus monkeys right now. But they're moving into human trials, and I think it's exciting to see what can come of that.
Academia is certainly an area where there's lots of research and very exciting research, but as an investor, how do you decide, you have this great research background, but is it going to be something that can really go to market?
Yeah, we see a lot of that actually, especially these days in Hong Kong, where I'm based. As you know, Hong Kong is home to some of the best universities in the region, across Asia and even the world. We've seen a lot of these academic teams, like professors and their PhD students, with decades of research under their belt, basically, in all sorts of fields, from not just biotech, but also new materials and semicon, and a lot of these deep tech areas. Over the years, number one, tech transfer out of these universities has been an obstacle, and number two, they just haven't had the commercial kind of talent to take these research and these R&D kind of products to market. I think a lot of that is changing, number one, the universities are putting a lot more effort into working with these professors and like trying to commercialize these IPs. They're setting up their own kind of venture funds. They're making their tech transfer offices more robust, more commercialized, and they're working with kind of external parties like ourselves, investors, to help bring these projects to market. And the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of talent, management talent from China, is actually slowly starting to come into Hong Kong. These are people with management experience in multiple startups or, these major corporates in the mainland, and they're looking to team up with strong R&D teams in Hong Kong. They bring the business side, the professors, they bring the technology side, and they actually make a pretty good team. We've backed a number of these, and we only see that there's more to come.
So is that management experience that maybe some of the executives in the startup bring to the new ventures, that's something that you really look for when you're making an investment, or is it something else?
We look at a mix of everything, right? So number one, the technology has to be cutting edge, right? And I'm lucky when I say that the stuff that we've been seeing coming out of Hong Kong, it is actually world class, right? So it's not just best in class in Hong Kong, best in class in China. I mean, this is really stuff that is ranking at the tops of where all of their academic peers are in the world. As long as that is the case, then we can start looking into the team. Like how is this professor spending his time? What are the teams that are actually going to come out and do this full time? Do they actually have a commercial person that can help actually bring in the business aspect and management aspects to bring this to market? I think we've been doing early stage investments for over 20 years. We're very used to kind of backing companies and startups with not much commercial traction. And really, we're just backing the entrepreneurs and the founders behind these.
And is the idea that these products eventually go to the US or to Southeast Asia? How do you kind of judge that market potential?
Yeah, it's different based on where these companies are starting, right? In Hong Kong, I mean, you really do have a luxury of drawing upon a very international talent base, sometimes these companies will decide to go into the mainland market. Sometimes these companies will decide to go into Southeast Asia, and even they'll also go directly to the U.S. or Europe. It really just depends on what products they're really bringing to market. And where their strengths in terms of distribution and partnerships lie. On the GBA side, the mainland side, I mean, I think a lot of those are still targeting the local Chinese market. Although more and more these days, you're hearing investors talk about Chuhai, right, which is going abroad. Oftentimes they're going through Hong Kong. So they'll start with all their R&D and their MVPs in the mainland. They'll set up a rep office or a BD office in Hong Kong, and from there they'll go abroad. We're seeing a lot of opportunity, especially in the cross-border space.
When it comes to pharmaceuticals and sustainability, affordability is something that also comes to mind. I'm wondering, how do you think about that? Are there businesses that are able to provide affordable healthcare solutions that you're looking at?
Yeah, there's different ways to answer the question, right? I think that there are some technologies that we've seen that are really replacement technologies, right? They're using new ways or new devices, basically, leveraging new technologies into these new devices to create a more low-cost option, which they can then offer to the lower-tier hospitals or clinics around China. There are other companies that are using AI and machine learning to kind of make drug discovery, drug production more efficient and therefore more cost effective. So we've invested in different companies like this, and I think that with so many different technology platforms out there these days that you can draw from, there's a lot of different ways to create new products, approaches that would offer lower cost options.
But all of that, we still can't escape the macro environment. So let's say the investments that you've made this year, when are you looking for a return?
That's a tough question, right? I mean, like every investor wants to invest today and get some money back tomorrow, right? But we have to be realistic, and I think that we have a very supportive kind of investor base, an LP base that believes in what we do, that believes that the returns will come. But it's a factor of the market, overall environment, and ultimately the company and their product.
So maybe 5 years, 10 years?
I don't want to put a time limit on it. I mean, I think whatever we tell our entrepreneurs is what we believe, and we tell them, look, I mean, we're here for as long as you need us.
And your LPs then?
Look, I mean, our LPs believe that we'll make the right financial decisions for them as we manage their money, and of course, we're looking for good returns because we're also looking to get paid.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing how you're sticking it through, even though it sounds like a pretty tough time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
OK， 好的。Last but not the least， 我们将迎来我们这2天最后一场 fireside。
Last but not least, we will have our last fireside chat that is of common concern, that is about longevity and the aging society. We know China, as well as some other countries in the world, are challenged by the aging population. By 2060, will be 28% of the Chinese population aged over 60. So how can we ensure the well-being of the aged population with science and technology? So let's give floor to Wendy Ye and her panels to address on this topic. Welcome. Thank you. This is the last but not least fireside chat. So here, let's try to jointly explore this topic. I believe that is a challenge for all of us, and many national governments also are taking measures to prepare for aging society. A mature aging society should be equipped with the elderly care system, the health care system, and also the increased public wellness for the aging population. So, Mr. Fan, I believe you have been a computing science expert who also have strong expertise about the healthcare and about the aging population. So what area will be the area that you consider as an area with the greatest growth potential in an aging population? Okay, so from my perspective, I have conducted cross-discipline studies for many years. We have combined the computing science with the healthcare and aging care. So now we see the emerging technologies like AR, VR, AI, etc. While at the same time, we are severely challenged by the aging population. So all in all, I would like to approach this topic from the following perspectives. The first one is the diagnosis and prevention of disease. I believe computing science and other technologies can help us to provide a more standardized, more objective tools for the early screening and diagnosis of disease. And also we saw some computer-assisted technologies and tools that can help us to prevent the disease like the Alzheimer and also the heart stroke and also heart attack, etc. So in this regard, computing science can help us to early identify and diagnose the disease. So I believe organization is is a startup based on the research and finding of CAE. So I think your company must have a very in-depth and background information about aging population. So from your perspective, what kind of technology that can be comparatively more easily adopted to tackle the challenge of aging population? So with the aging population, on one hand, we are blessed with longevity, with a longer life expectancy. But on the other hand, we're challenged by more chronic disease, in particular in the late stage of our life. So in past years, Parkinson or Alzheimer are not major disease for us because people's life expectancy is not that long. Well, now these diseases have become a global challenge for the world. To diagnose diseases like this, we're highly dependent on the analysis and observation of patient symptoms. But we know at the early onset stage, some symptoms might be very mild or not perceivable. So at the primary medical care level, in particular for those younger and inexperienced physicians, it would be very difficult for them to diagnose patients like this. But if the disease progresses to the medium or the advanced stage, it would be very difficult for us to treat diseases like that. So I believe what we need is the early warning, early screening, and prevention of disease like this. So I believe that what technology can help us to do, and that is the area where we have the greatest potential. Yes, we can use the technology to standardize the process of diagnosis. Yes, we know that healthcare has been a highly demanding industry. Well, if you are trying to combine the technology with the clinical practice, what will be the greatest challenge for you? I think the challenge are multifold. Firstly, we see the collaboration of different disciplines. For example, we have to combine the people from the engineering or computing background with the experts from the medical science background. We speak different languages, even if we are all Chinese, we speak different languages. For example, computing scientists like me, we have to really understand the pain point in clinical practice. That is not an easy task for us. And also at the same time, we have to make sure the clinicians, they really understand the technology, what technology can do and what technology cannot do. So that is the communication and collaboration of people from different backgrounds. Secondly, we need to have a very strong clinical evidence to prove the efficacy and safety of our technology. So for this purpose, we need some high-quality clinical trial. And I believe for any country, this will be a great challenge because it's really time-consuming and very costly. Thirdly, is that for the adoption of any new technology, we will need a kind of market education. At the early stage, the market might not be that mature, so who will be the first adopter or first user of the new technology? So in order to popularize the technology, we have to educate the market, educate the clinicians, the patients, etc. So I believe that is another kind of challenge for us, but that is inevitable. It's impossible for you to bypass it. Okay, I got it. So from your description, we know it will be a very tough and time-consuming process. I know your organization have been collaborating with some major healthcare institutions, but you know that the major healthcare institutions might not necessarily be the first choices for the aged population. Now, we are trying to promote the community-based primary healthcare. So, from your perspective, what's your comments? What's your observation for the wearable disease for the aged patient? In particular, those wearable devices that can be used for the treatment or diagnosis of disease and the monitoring of disease. Okay, I really appreciate your point. As we know, some chronic disease,
they need to be monitored and managed in the long run at the community based on community or based at home. For example, if you come to a physician, maybe those physicians can only give you, say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes for your communication and diagnosis. But what you need is a long-term and all-day-long supervision and management of the chronic disease. That is why in our R&D, we, on one hand, will focus on the testing of our technology, while at the same time, we are also exploring the possibility in a home or community-based healthcare. For example, sometimes we will try to do the testing or the clinical trial back at home or back to community. Let me give you an example to explain what I mean. For example, we have some clinical trial for the eye movement, or we will have a test of your eye movement. We can do this kind of a trial or test at hospital, but we can also do it at home. For example, you are watching the football game back at home. You are watching the TV. So we can give you a wearable devices that is very convenient to be used at home. So with this device, we will not disturb your daily life. You can just sit at home watching TV while we can observe your eye movement. Well, eye movement abnormality can be a evidence for diagnosing dementia, etc. Okay, we know that you are based in China and you are a very innovative startup, but you have to competing with some international giant. So what are your competitive advantages in comparison to them? Okay, let me put it this way. To be honest, I believe for the medical care devices, in particular those very large size medical care devices internationally, I believe most of the market share are still in the hand of those international giant pharmaceutical companies. But at the same time, we see that in China, in particular, for those devices that will be more frequently used in the daily life of a patient or in the daily routine of nurses and physicians, we still have our own advantages. Let me give you an example. We have made a survey and we find that in countries like US and some European countries, when they are trying to evaluate the movement of patient, they still are using technologies like sensors. But it's not easy and convenient for us to use the sensors. Well, on our part, what we can use is the visual technology. It's the technologies that will test your visual capacity, will test your eye movement. So comparatively speaking, it will be more advanced and more convenient and more patient-friendly to test your neural system functionality in comparison to the traditional devices like large size sensors. Okay, I remember you also briefly mentioned that you have plans to expand your business to overseas market. So if that's the case, what kind of strategy will you adopt in your international or overseas expansion? Okay, healthcare, to be honest, will always be challenged by licensing and market access. Even back in China, if we want to sell the healthcare product or medical equipment, we need to get the licensing from Chinese regulator, and it's also the same for the international market. So the first challenge for us is to provide enough evidence to get the license and approval from the other foreign regulators. While at the same time, what we need is for us, we need to get enough high-quality clinical data from overseas market. For example, for the aged population, we need a set of criteria or metrics used to evaluate the cognition and the behavior of aged population. We might see some differences resulted from races, from the countries, or even from cultures. So even if we have solid clinical evidence here in China, we will still need more data from overseas market. While thirdly, we have very strong and established relationship with the Chinese physicians, Chinese hospitals, and healthcare institutions. But when we are trying to go abroad, we have to set up our own presence internationally, and we have to set up our own networkings and our relationship on international market. That is another fold of challenge. Yes, I agree with you. So you can see that despite all those challenges, science and technology can still help us to embrace a more promising aged population. So at least you enhanced my confidence in my elderly life. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fan, for your contribution. Thank you, Mr. Fan, and thank you, Wendy. With that, we wrapped up this 2023 East Tech West hosted by CNBC. Once again, would like to give our gratitude to our sponsor, to the Nansha government, and also to our partners and to our audience, our panelists, and our speakers. I hope and I believe the 2 days is a rewarding experience for you, helping you to be more fully and actively engaged in the science and technology